It's not 5 o'clock, and they don't care. Welcome to Wine to 5. Entertainment, education, and everyday drinking for everyday people. Your hosts are Valerie Caruso and Stephanie Davis, two wine educators who don't need a clock to know when to pour that next glass.
All right, welcome to it. It is episode 192 of the Wine to 5 podcast. It's happening now, and we have a special treat this week. I'm Val. Yes, I'm yelling at you because I'm really excited, and because this week my co-host is Michelle, and she's joining the fun from Reno, Nevada. Welcome, Michelle.
Hello, how are you?
Hey, doing well, and you guys are probably going, okay, first, Val, stop yelling at me. Second, who the hell's Michelle? Third, where the hell's Steph? So I'm going to tell you right now, because Steph is such a freaking rock star that her presence is required in Arizona this week. So we thought it would be fun to bring Michelle back, and we're going to pick her brain about pet nats. Now, she is the manager of the Esoteric Wine Bar, and she's been on our show before. But let me tell you a little bit about her. First of all, her name is Michelle Miller, and she caught the wine bug many years ago when she stumbled. Literally, Michelle, stumbled?
Basically, yeah, a little bit of wine, so that does help stumbling.
Yeah, a little stumbling into a weekly wine tasting, and was convinced that Napa Cab was the only wine worthy of drinking. I think we all started there at one time.
Right.
And even with this narrow-minded belief, she was invited back to work the wine tasting each week, where she started tasting everything to expand her palate. This led to a never-ending quest to learn everything she could about the world of wine. She studied for many years and passed the Certified Sommelier, Certified Specialist of Wine, Italian Wine Professional, and California Wine Specialist, and loves to learn more every day. And now you're managing your own wine bar.
Yeah, managing, running, everything. I do everything here. So yes, it's pretty crazy. I guess you could say I was handed the keys and I make all the decisions, and never knew I could run a wine bar, but here I am doing it, and it's becoming, it's pretty successful. So I'm really excited.
You know, I've got so many questions on you, and I don't want to take it too far off track, because as you guys are going to figure out real quick, I actually have to bust a move after this interview and go pour wine for some lovely ladies. But before we get into that, I just got to ask you, what was the thing that you had to learn to take over that wine bar that you had no idea you were going to have to learn?
That's a really interesting question. Basically, the wine bar that was here before was the West Street Wine Bar, and that closed. So I just took it over and reopened, and I didn't know anything about running a business, but I had to do everything from ordering wine, getting it stocked, cultivating a wine list, and deciding what type of focus I wanted to portray to everybody. So I decided I really wanted to create the wine bar that I would like to go to, meaning different wines from around the world. Reno seems to be heavily focused on California wines and certain producers and varieties, and that's where you get the same wine everywhere you go. And I don't want the same wine every time I drink. And so I started out with a focus of trying to create the wine bar I would like to go to, where there's wines from around the world. There's always something different. And so I had to figure all of this out on my own on how to run it and how to do it. And so far it's working really well. I change my wine list all the time. Every week there's a new wine list, and there's a couple new wines in and out. I always tell people not to get married to a wine at my bar because it will be gone. I buy a case at a time. So I will have, your typical varieties. I'll have a Cab, I'll have a Pinot, but I bring in a case at a time. And once that case is gone, I bring something different. So for example, I had an Anderson Valley Pinot, and then I just switched it out. Now I have a New Zealand Pinot. Okay. And so I guess it's just creating the wine bar I want to go to, because again, something different every single time. There's so much out there. The world is so vast that you could drink something new every single day and never even touch a tenth of the world's wine. So I'm trying to, create that environment. And, a little bit of education. I kind of sell myself, so to speak. I love when people come and want to talk about wine with me. And so they'll come and I use the term geek out. So I'll get a lot of funky producers that, are doing interesting things, and I'll talk about that with the guests if they like. And so, yeah, I'm creating that type of following, and it seems to be going over well.
Now, did you have to learn about the point of sale system and the books, or do you have people that do that?
No, I had the point of sale system was already established with the restaurant next door. That's part of this market. My wine bar is located in what's called the West Street Market in downtown Reno, and there's 4 businesses here: myself, the wine bar, and then there's 3 restaurants. And each restaurant has their own focus on different types of cuisines. But Tolly is who took over the bar that I run now, and they already had a Apple POS system, and so it was pretty intuitive. So I figured out how to program that and use that, and from there everything else, just been figuring it out on the fly. I never knew I could run a business. I did take a class on it and was, but that never actually translates to being able to run a business. And I'm finding out that I actually can do very well. And I'm pretty proud of myself, if I can say the least. Yeah.
Well, and I think for listeners who are probably experimenting with different aspects of the wine industry, and we do try to cover all the kind of different aspects. This is something we haven't talked about before, what it's like to run a wine bar. So I guess that's why I'm really interested in it. And I think we probably have some listeners who are like, hey, what skills do I need? Or maybe they want to get out of their day job and into the wine industry. This is just something else to consider, that, you can just come in. I'm not going to say off the street, but you can come in and learn how to run a wine business and change your career.
Oh, absolutely. And one thing that I did find, and it's with any business, and you have your own business too, you'll know that there's things you'll have strengths, and we all have strengths, and there's some things that there are weaknesses. So for me, my biggest weakness is social media, believe it or not. I know I have my own Facebook account, which if I'm doing something, I'll post on that. But with nowadays with business, you got to be up on social media all the time. And that's where I found I shot myself in the foot a lot in the beginning, or for a long time, because I came up with all these creative ideas of things I wanted to do for the bar, and tastings or seminars or something. But I just shot myself in the foot with figuring out how to even promote it, because that's my definite weakness.
Okay.
Can I cultivate a wine list? Can I talk about the wine? Can I learn? And can I give a really great guest experience? Yes. Can I do the books? Yes. But can I promote stuff on social media every day? No, I cannot. And I was fortunate enough to get an employee that his focus, he used to be in the service industry, but now he works his main job is to do social media. So he works for the casinos downtown doing their social media. So the Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and so he's going to school in that, so he knows how to do it very well. So I was fortunate enough to be able to hire him last month to start running my social media. And
yay!
Yeah, I know, it's awesome. So now I have a great social media presence so far, and he's just been doing great. And the hits to my page have quadrupled. Exponentially. It's just been very fortunate. So that's one thing about running a business. Any business, you just know that you can't do everything. You can, but probably not everything right. Not everything really, really well. And you do need help sometimes. And that's where I definitely needed help. And lucky now I finally have some. So.
All right, Michelle. So we talked a little bit about managing a wine bar, and I'm sure we could go on about that. I want to hear what's in your glass, and then we'll go on and talk a little bit more about the subject du jour. Okay.
Right now in my glass, I have the Wonder Woman Pet Nat. We'll talk about Pet Nats in a moment. So it's a Pet Nat made by Anne Paillet, and it's grown biodynamically, and it is a sparkling wine that is Cinsault, Syrah, and Grenache. And it is called Wonder Woman because all of us women out there are rock stars and Wonder Woman, and we should be drinking Wonder Woman wine.
Oh my God. So the wine heroine is going to love that. And I'm also hearing Cinsault, Grenache, and what was the other one?
Oh, I'm sorry. Cinsault, Syrah, and Grenache.
I'm hearing red grapes.
Yes, all red grapes.
I'm hearing Southern Rhone.
She's actually located and grows in Languedoc.
Okay, so that makes sense. Southern France.
But her boyfriend has a place in the Loire Valley, so she grows everything, but she does all her winemaking in the Loire Valley. So it's kind of interesting.
Okay.
Yeah. I was trying to get the whole DL for the story behind that, but I wasn't able to finish that right in time. But she's all her grapes and stuff. She runs a biodynamic farm, and it's all grown in the Languedoc, but she does her winemaking in the Loire.
That is so cool. And shout out to the wine heroine. We're going to get you a picture of that label, Steph, because I know she would go nuts if she heard that. So I am actually not drinking, and you're probably going, why? Then why bother? I'm turning you off now. But no, seriously, I have in my glass the 2018 H2O, which is filtered water from my fridge. I have to drive immediately after this, so I thought it best not show up with booze on my breath. And I will let you guys know, though, however, I am tweeting all 21 days of my Costco beer advent calendar. I'm 6 days in, and we'll probably sip that when I come home. And I take all these pictures of the beer can, that they're 500 ml beer cans that my husband and I, we split, and that we can both taste these beers. And they're all these German beers, and there are crazy different kinds of beers in this advent calendar. So I'm posing the beer cans around all the holiday decorations. I'll be tweeting that out later. So that's what I'll be drinking later. But let's get back to this episode. You guys heard Michelle. She's drinking a Pet Nat. And we did talk a little bit about the wine bar. So before we go on to the Pet Nats, when we talk about episode 84, which is, oh my God, over 100 episodes ago, you were here. Isn't that crazy?
It is insane.
Well, your chosen topic during that episode was champagne. So I think it's really funny because we're breaking it down with more bubble banter, and we're going to pontificate on Pet Nats. So tell us a little bit about these pétillants naturels.
Well, the term Pet Nat started in the Loire Valley from natural winemakers. So it is a sparkling wine, but it's by taking the base wine that's with spontaneous fermentation, meaning the difference between natural wine and I guess regular wine. Natural wine, they don't use a certain strand of yeast to inoculate. They crush the grapes and let the ambient yeast inoculate. So the yeast that's on this the grape skins and or the cellar, that's what inoculates the inoculation, meaning starting the fermentation process to make that beautiful alcohol. And so with Pet Nats, after they inoculate, they bottle the wine unfiltered before fermentation is completed. So in the jar, in the bottle.
In the jar.
In the jar, bottle. Yeah, in the
wine
jar.
in a jar.
Wine, exactly. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised with some of these if there are some in jars. But yeah, they bottle it, and then they actually seal it with a crown cap, like you see on a beer bottle. And then once capped, the CO2 from the fermentation is trapped in the bottle and becomes bubble in the wine. And that is when most is released. It's just based on the winemaker's determination of his desired completion of fermentation. And that could be how cloudy it is, whatever he determines, this is what he wants to release it at, what he thinks, how many bubbles or the sweetness. And what this does, it produces an unfiltered wine with dead yeast cells in the bottle. And a lot of times it gives the wine a cloudy appearance. So I actually have 3 different bottles here of Pet Nat with me today. And one of them is a clear bottle, and you can see right through it. You can see it's cloudy. It's musty. It kind of looks like a cider and dirty cider. And at the bottom, you can see all this sediment, and which would be those dead yeast cells. And the result is a fun, honest wine. Could be dry, off dry. Usually has a lower alcohol content. Most natural wines seem to have a lower alcohol content, and they can do whatever grapes that they want to do. They can use any. They decide that they have these grapes, and I can make it into a sparkling wine. It doesn't have to be the set rules. So they're making wines like how they want. Now, with that being said, of course, there could be there's no legal definition of natural wine.
That's correct. It's an unregulated, it is not a legal term. So when people say natural wine, most people will try to say least amount of intervention as possible using ambient yeast, the little bloom on the grape, yeast in the cellars, or not so much sulfur. Not to intervene, just let nature make the wine.
Correct. So because there is no term, you can't really, especially in France with the AOC, you can't label anything natural wine. It's against the law because of the fact that there is no legal determination. And there's experience in that. Like also Italy has the same problem, but they have their own regime that they're trying to they're still working on trying to hammer it out to get definition of what natural wine is. But the way natural wine is, it actually goes back, though. It's based on the winemaking concept of method ancestral. Are you familiar with that? Well, I'm sure you are.
That's what I talk about when I do talk about, I see you're mentioning Limoux here, and that's what I talk about with some of these Limoux Ancestral wines, because they are often cloudy. The way they did it back in the day, Okay, so they did what you said. They bottled the wine, and then winter would come. and it would be cold and the yeast would kind of go dormant. And then when spring came and the bubbles started again, but it wasn't controlled. But that was before champagne and before all that. And then, of course, when we get into champagne, we talk about exploding bottles like we did when you were last on the show. It's not method champenoise or classic method. It is an ancient method of putting the sparkle into the bottle.
Correct. And then a lot of times, though, with one of the big differences between method ancestral and what now is termed pet nat is method ancestral, a lot of times they were usually do disgorge those. Mm-hmm. And because they want to remove the dead yeast cells. And then if they do disgorge, then they'll actually seal it with a cork and cage like you see in traditional closures. Whereas pet nats, they keep that beer cap as their closure. That's one way to tell a pet nat. And then, of course, France trying to get in with their laws, they did come up with a term, but they can't call it pet nat. They call it pétillant originale.
Okay.
And that started in 2007 in Montlouis in the Loire. And am I saying that correctly, Montlouis?
I thought it was Montlouis.
Montlouis, yes. All right. Okay. And I'll defer to you. That's why
I don't know. My French is like, that's like my third language. So I've not even a language. So yeah. So if you speak French out there, Lynn, feel free to correct us on all of that.
Please do. I always defer to anybody when it comes to pronunciation. I am the absolute worst. I know that. But the AOC did step in and they gave this the new AOC origin of the pétillant original because you can't use natural. But then, of course, now they have laws, and it says the winemaker cannot use sugar or yeast throughout the fermentation process, must be harvested by hand, have a potential alcohol of 12.5, and do whole cluster pressing, and must stay on their lees for 9 months prior. So this imparts laws for what, is kind of almost a whimsical, fun way for winemakers to make their wine. So a lot of people have not even decided to use this. I think right now there's only a handful of producers using this pétillant original because they don't want to be limited to what the laws state that they have to do. But with that being said, most times the people that are making pet nat would be growing stuff at minimum organically and or biodynamically. So it's not so much the growing methods as it is, I'm sure it's where you have control on what grapes you can use, and then how long it has to stay on the leaves. Maybe, someone wants something fresher and out sooner. So they're not following these laws. So if they don't follow these laws, it's just labeled as Vin de France
or a sparkling wine, or they can say pétillant on the label even if it's not a pétillant original, correct?
Right, I believe it can say
it's a style,
but it's not. But not original. Yes, correct, because it's not an AOC. Yes.
Okay, so you said the Montlouis-sur-Loire appellation, they're the ones that came up, and this is in the Loire, which we didn't even mention, I don't think, in our Loire regional wrap, but this is where they kind of instigated the whole pétillant original movement. Are they the only ones that can use it, or can they use it, or could pétillant original be anywhere in France?
I believe it could be anywhere in France, but I don't know. I would have to look that up. I apologize. I don't know.
No, that's okay. I didn't want to put you on the spot. We can look that up later. I mean, that's what we're doing here is learning. So that's all cool. So that's exciting. So that's a Chenin Blanc based wine. But again, you've got one from the Languedoc there, the Wonder Woman, which has red grapes in it. And does it say pétillant original on it, or is it just?
No, this one does not say pétillant original. It doesn't even refer to pétillant on the label.
So how do you know it's bubbles other than the cap?
Because of the cap.
Okay.
Yes.
And the shape of the bottle, maybe thicker bottle glass?
It is thicker bottle glass, and it's still a normal-esque shape. It's not like a champagne bottle shape, but yeah, it doesn't say anything about pétillant.
Does it have a deep, like a punt on the bottom? And what would you say the average? Yeah, it looks like a sparkling wine bottle with a funny cap on it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And would you say the pressure in these bottles is somewhat lower than the 5 atmospheres or so that's in classic produced wines or classic produced sparkling wine?
I'm pretty sure it's usually going to be 5 or less.
Okay.
Because you can't get that type of pressure.
Yeah.
But I do have a bottle here of, again, my terrible French, but Las Compadres pétillant.
Okay.
But he labels it as Méthode Ancestrale, but he also labels it as Pétillant Naturel.
Okay.
but he's going for method ancestral on there as opposed to, so he's not using that new designation. He's rating method ancestral.
Okay, so he's using both.
Yeah. Well, he has on Pétillant Naturel.
Where's that one from?
And this is from the Loire Valley.
Okay.
And this is one of the, like this, if you Google like the best producers of pet nats, this winemaker here is labeled as one of the best.
And that one looks kind of dark, so...
Yeah, it's red, and it has a little bit of, I guess you would call it off dry. It's really juicy and delicious, but yeah, I'm learning all the time on these. They're a lot of fun, but yeah, for sure. This one's like has a little bit of sweetness. I love it. So you consider it slightly off dry.
Very cool. That's exciting. So,
pretty label.
So you mentioned who does them well, and it's pretty much, you're getting them from all over France. You're getting them from the Loire. You're getting from Languedoc, who's been doing Method Ancestral for a long time, but also in the New World, who does them well. What great ones have you had from New World producers?
I have not had any New World producers, believe it or not. Funny enough, I have not. But I know there's a couple places in California that have done them and are known for doing them, but I have yet to have one. It hasn't come across my the radar, I guess, so to speak.
Yeah, even I've got, of course, the Oxford. My OCW is a little bit of date. I think this is the 2015 OCW was the last one that came out. But even Jancis Robinson mentions that there are examples all over the world that are made, but she didn't list any specific producers. But I was just kind of curious. I just pulled it up before we got in here because I'm like, oh gosh, I don't want to sound like a total idiot because I've not been one to seek them out. And Steph and I, as you know, we love the funkier the better. If it's unfiltered, yes. If it's got chunks in it, sure, in a good way. And so the fact that we haven't even talked about those on the show in almost 4 years is fantastic.
Well, this other one I have here is actually from Germany, and it's the Sylvaner. And this one's a clear bottle. So I'll give you the names of these after the show, and you can probably link them up, and you can probably get a picture of the bottle.
Yeah.
But this has a really cool, funky-looking old guy, kind of like Father Christmas on the label.
Yeah, it looks like a Bacchus kind of thing.
Yes, and he labels it PET, P-E-T, /nat. So he's calling it a pet nat. Sylvaner 2016. So it's 100% Sylvaner from Germany, and this is funky as you get. I mean, it looks like a really unclear, unfiltered apple cider, stuff all floating throughout it. And then at the bottom, there's a whole bunch of sediment. All those dead yeast cells just coagulating, hanging out in there, partying.
Yeah, it looks like one of those like unfiltered beers. Hello, vitamin B. That is awesome. Can you send pictures of all those bottles?
I sure can.
That'd be great. And we'll put them in the blog for you guys, and then we'll get the spelling and all that, and you guys can seek them out. But let's move on to the natural wine, since we're kind of broaching that subject anyway. Tell us a little bit about Esoteric's focus on natural wine.
Well, it all goes back to when I first took over and wanting to create something different and bring in new wines all the time. And I am really fond of natural wines because I want as little chemical intervention in what I'm drinking as possible. There's enough chemicals that we get through daily exposure every day without even trying. I don't want to put chemicals in my body. So I started drinking. I found a couple importers of stuff that I really love. And then when I took the bar over, I hooked up with a distributor, and he handles all of the importers of those natural wines, and decided that that was going to be my focus. But in addition to also having typical wines, so I create my menu as two separate sides. One side I call what I call your normal side, and normal in that like you'll recognize the varieties. So I have Cab, again, I told you Cab, but my Cab right now is from Bulgaria. So I mean normal, but yet not so normal because it's from Bulgaria. Whereas on the other side, I call it the cork dork, and that's where I put all the natural wines and the natural wine producers. And some of them are so funky and fun, which you guys love. And some of them you wouldn't even know is a natural wine producer. Some of them are very typical and classic style. So yeah. I love the funkier the better, but I do try to keep a variety, make sure I always have some really real funky, fun stuff, and then some stuff that's typical. And so having fun with that. And it fits really well into, my philosophy fits well into the market's philosophy here. There's 3 different restaurants, Thali, which is a Northeastern or Punjabi Indian food, and they're farm to table, and it's It's gluten-free. I mean, you could have it gluten-free and vegan, but it is a vegetarian restaurant. It's all cooked from scratch every single day. So basically, it's just the menu changes every day, if not during the night, because they make one pot of something. And when that's gone, the next thing comes in. And it's served in what's called a thali style. So thali is just a way of eating. It's their plate. And it's just the 3 separate dishes with yogurt and rice. But again, all beautiful, organic, delicious food. Then we also have the Pizza Collective, which opened up right around the same time I did. And they focus on fermented sourdough from scratch every single day. And their oven kind of serendipitously, it came from New York, where I had just went to a wine tasting, which was really funny, but it was from Pizza Una, which is out of New York City, and they're known for like some of the best pizza in the world. And it's a brick oven that they got in from Italy. And so Pizza Una.
But not to be confused with Pizzeria Uno, the chain.
No,
Okay.
not Pizzeria Uno,
That's
the chain.
Chicago
No.
style. Yeah.
Yes, they had a San Francisco location, and then they closed that, and the Pizza Collective got their oven. So yeah, they ferment their sourdough from scratch every single day, plus get all locally sourced and then organic, delicious, wonderful, wholesome ingredients. And their menu changes weekly. They're always doing something new, something fresh. And then in the back, we have Deluxe, and they also focus on as local and organic as possible. And they change their menu quarterly because they want to make sure seasonally, so to speak. And they want to make sure that they're getting the best ingredients all within season. So the philosophy of everyone here in the market is all about wholesome, good, pure eating. And my philosophy with minimal chemical intervention wine. So to be on my wine list, you have to be minimally sustainably grown. So at least I know, at least it says you are caring about your land. Mm-hmm. And so I have this philosophy, which fits really well into the market philosophy. And we really work really well together. And you could either take my wine and eat in the common area, or you could order from any of the restaurants in this place, and they'll deliver it to you in my wine bar, where we can do a fun wine pairing throughout your meal. So
that is something that's very rare today. And I have to give a shout out to my favorite wine bar back east, which was the Wine Cellar, believe it or not, it's CELLAR. And it used to be that I could order from my favorite restaurant, Ashton's, or any of the community restaurants like around the corner, and they would deliver the meals to the wine bar, so you could select either a bottle or a tasting or a full glass of wine from their list and eat right there in the wine bar. I don't know if they do it anymore, but shout out to Robin and Amy and all you guys in Southern Pines if you're still doing that, because that was really my first idea of how enjoying wine should be. You know, you kind of belly up to the bar, you talk with the ladies behind the bar, the gentlemen, you have some nibbles, or you go down the street and have dinner at a restaurant, or have them bring it there, or come back later. There's music. There's always something to interact with. And then at the end of the night, I like the bottle. I'm taking the bottles home. And that's where I got introduced to a wide range of wines, is by having a great wine bar.
That's why it's really neat being here, able to, with always changing wines, being able to pair the wines with the different foods options that I have available here. And it's a lot of fun. And like right now I have a sherry on tap, believe it or not, a Manzanilla sherry.
Nice.
Yeah, well, the geekier the better for me, but yes.
Well, your audio is kind of breaking up again.
Oh no.
So I think what I'm going to do is I might just go ahead and move on to the Wino Radar, if that's okay.
Absolutely perfect.
Do you have anything for Wino Radar, or any shout outs that you want to do before I move into Wino Radar and factoids and all that good stuff?
I'm really excited. February 12th, it's a Tuesday. A good friend of mine, Will Costello, he's a master sommelier, and he got in touch with me and told me he was going to be coming to Reno, and he asked if he could come do a tasting at my bar. So he works for Bien Necesito Vineyards, so those beautiful wines out of California. So he'll be bringing some of those wines, and I'm going to have a blind tasting night with a master sommelier. So February 12th, and I'm going to start selling tickets for that in January, and have 2 of his Solomon Hills wines here and then he's going to pick out 2 Old World wines, and we're going to have fun with Old World versus New World, and can we really tell? And so it should be a really great evening, and it's Tuesday, February 12th.
Okay, tell everybody where they can find you and the Esoteric Wine Bar in the social spaces, with your handy new social media manager doing the heavy lifting there.
So I do have a Facebook page, Esoteric Wine Bar, and an Instagram page, Esoteric Wine Bar, and that's in Reno, Nevada. And yes, it is run by my wonderful assistant, Jason. And I do have my own personal Facebook page, Michelle Miller, and those would be the main ways to get in touch with me. If someone emails the Esoteric page, I get back to them right away. That's actually answered by me.
All right, Michelle, thank you so much. And I'm going to move on to my wino radar because someone, and not mentioning any names, perhaps gets a little bit too excited about developments in the wine world, as you can tell because I grilled Michelle here. But I'm also excited because I'm kind of almost done studying, formally, and I don't have to add them to my study materials. But for those of you that are still adding to your study materials and your exam questions, the Wine, Wit, and Wisdom blog, you might think that's the embodiment of this podcast because we do believe we have Wine, Wit, and Wisdom, but it's actually the official blog of the Society of Wine Educators. And that's actually how Michelle and Steph and we all met. But in the last 2 weeks, these posts have gotten my attention because they're just off the wall with the new stuff. First of all, Michelle, have you heard of the Pewee grapes?
The Pewee grapes, like P-E-E-W-E? No.
Actually, I don't even know if this is how they say it. They say the P-I-W-I. I say Pewee. I don't know if that's the P-I-W-I. I've never heard of this because this involves Austrian wines. Okay, so they've got the grapes that I've never heard of, Blütenmuskateller, Mascaris, and then it looks like a Sauvignier Gris, not to be confused with Sauvignon that we talked about last week. This is Souvignier, Gris. And these are what they call the P-I-W-I, or I say Pewee grapes. They're approved for Austrian wines, and they're also hybrids, which is crazy. Now, Austria already does have hybrids in their authorized grape varieties, but according to the Wine, Wit, and Wisdom blog, or what I'm calling the W3 blog, the Pewee varieties are P-I, which stands for Pilz, which means fungus, and W-I, which means Widerstandsfähig.
Of course.
I guess. Mari, if I'm mispronouncing that, you will take care of that for me. So Widerstandsfähig is resistant, so fungus-resistant grapes, and that's the point behind these hybrid varieties and why they are well suited to organic and sustainable viticulture, and that is according to the Wine, Wit, and Wisdom blog. How exciting is that to you?
That's really interesting. When you were saying what P-I and W-I meant, I would have thought it was going to be one of Jane's mnemonics that she comes up with.
Yeah, I think this is actually theirs. I don't think she came up with it, but yeah, she comes up with good ones.
Yeah, no, once you went to Wittgenstein, however you said that W word, I knew that wouldn't have been one of her mnemonics, but yeah, it's really interesting. Read into this for sure. Yeah,
and she does it. She's like the first one to break these news every time there's a new wine region or a new grape or something like that. So I'm just going to link that. And I know, Jane, you listen. I think what I would love to have is every week I would love to have like a sound bite of Jane just doing a 30-second or 60-second wino radar. It's like, this week's wino radar, we're going to talk about the Pewee grapes. We got Pilz Widerstandsfähig, which means fungus resistant. And these are for the Blütenmuskateller, Mascaris, and Sauvignier Gris. Oh my! And these are approved hybrid grapes for Austrian wines. And I could just picture it. Can you?
I can actually hear her doing that for sure.
Oh my God! I know. We're gonna sign Jane up for this stuff. No, we're not. But thank you, Jane, for listening, and we love what you're doing over there. And because of that, I saw this a couple weeks ago. We had a listener who wanted pop quizzes.
Pop quizzes, nice.
Pop quiz is in the podcast, and so I'm just going to try this out and see what you guys think. I'm going to call this the Pod Quiz Podcast Pop-Up, or we're going to call it a Pod Quiz. I'm going to write that down right now.
All right.
Pod Quiz. There, just came up with it. Here's a little pod quiz. The Darnibole PDO. D-A-R-N-I-B-O-L-E. This is your pod quiz of the week. Where is it? We know it's wine, so what kind of wine is it, and what grapes are used to make it?
Nice. That's a good one.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yes.
I want a T-shirt that says, I heart the Darnibole PDO, because I think the story is fantastic. So that is your pod quiz for the week.
Oh, how fun.
And next week, we'll give you the answer, so you got to tune in. And don't be Googling it. Don't be Googling. Well, that's how you learn. Go ahead and Google it if you want. So D-A-R-N-I-B-O-L-E. So it's a wine region. And it uses specific grapes, and tell me where it is. And go ahead and put that in the group or tweet it out to us at Wine to Five and all that good stuff. And then we have a shout out. And this is also for Elizabeth Yarbruti, a certified wine educator. She is the first Venezuela. She's a friend of ours. And she's also the first person in South America to earn the certified wine educator credential, which is quite the achievement because it is a 6-part exam, right? And there are only about 12% of the people who've ever earned this credential who've passed the first time. Steph is one of them, and Elizabeth is one of them. Yeah, I failed it 4 times. It's all good. But congratulations, Elizabeth. We are so proud of you, and we hope to give you a big old hug in August.
Congratulations.
Wonder Woman.
Yes, and I'm drinking some Wonder Woman wine to celebrate you, Elizabeth. Congratulations.
Great accomplishment, and big, big hugs to her. And then, of course, our next shout out goes to our show sponsor, who is Wines Till Sold Out. This is where you get the best online price because WTSO will price match any bottles they have. We mentioned the great customer service multiple times and how easy they are to use. We've even talked with their COO a few weeks back to get the 411 on how they do this so well. The service is perfect for large orders, perfect for corporate gifting, as Steph recently found out, and for building out or expanding your collections. Give them a call, see if they have Pet Nat, just saying, or go to your listener page at weeklytasting.com/wine-to-5 to sign up and get started, or just go to our webpage and click on the Grapes link. Be sure to follow them in their social spaces because they're sending out seller-worthy deals all flippin' day long. So check it out.
Sweet.
Michelle, I'm tired.
Yeah.
Could you read some Patreon love?
Absolutely.
And I'm going to sip some water and shut the hell up for a minute.
There you go.
All right.
Our Reserva Superiore supporter, Robin from Girls Gone Grape. And now we have our Reserva supporter,
Auntie
Auntie in Georgia. I should know this because I listen to you guys all the time. And of course, the Tenacious Tasters, Jeff E. from the We Like Drinking podcast, Sebastian of Sassy Italy Wine Tours, David and Lisa in Illinois, Anne-Marie in Virginia, Lynn of Savor the Harvest blog, and Sharon in Florida.
Thank you, Michelle. And our It's Not 5 o'clock and We Don't Care listeners, Megan, South Dakota, Clay in Arizona, in California, John, Andrew, Aswani, and Kristen, Chantel's in Ontario, Canada, Mary Lou's in Pennsylvania, and Kathy's in Georgia, Chris, Janet, and Diana in Colorado, and in Illinois, we have Steve and Renee, Kathy's in Tennessee, Sean's in Ohio, and Ashley and Sarah are in North Carolina. And our Tastemaker listeners, David in Scotland, Carol in Kentucky, Karen in California, Chip and Katie in Pennsylvania, Serena in New York, and Annie in Colorado, and Danielle. Now, didn't you and Renee do some partying in New York at a tasting?
We did. Back to the natural wines, but why I got involved in natural wines. Louis Dresner is one of my absolute favorite importers. And I now buying their wines, I was able to go to their annual show in New York this year, and I was so excited. I called up my friend Renee in Chicago, and I'm like, hey, girl, come meet me in New York. I'll get you a ticket to the tasting. And so, yeah, we had a nice little fun trip in and out of New York in 39 hours. But, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we did it right. We had a lot of fun. And, yeah, got to go to that tasting and also Selection Maisel tasting, which is where the pizza oven, my pizza oven at the market was originated. So it was kind of very serendipitous.
That is so cool.
Yeah, it was really fun. So, and it was, a lot of fun. No sleep, but that's okay. You're not supposed to sleep. So.
That's awesome. And that's what we're all about, is we're all about connecting here. So you kind of hear like we're like a family, like we all kind of know each other, who we're talking about. We share our connections. And if you want to connect with the Wine to Five podcast between our weekly episodes, we're out there. You can find goodies on our website. You can connect with all these fine people one way or another, or in our Facebook group. Check us out on wine-to-5.com. Find us in the social spaces anywhere at Wine-to-5. But until next week, everybody, cheers.
Thanks for having me, Val.
Thanks for coming, Michelle. This was a blast.
Thank you for listening to the Wine to 5 podcast.
Miss you, Steph.
Be sure to check us out at Facebook/WineTWO5 and tune in next week for more fun and useful sip tips.